What's going on, everybody? Today we are going to talk about Liverpool and their slump, quote unquote, and how serious it is, or if it's blown out of proportion. But we are going to talk about the slump, what it means for the future, if there are any problems here at Liverpool, what's going on at Liverpool, and hopefully we can get to the bottom of it. So let's jump right on into it and talk right about it. Now, Liverpool have lost 3 or 4 before today. Today they beat Bournemouth 2-1. Just got finished watching that. And even that game started not so great. Liverpool feel a foul impeded everything, but regardless, they came back 2-1 and closed the game out pretty well. Bournemouth had that one opportunity that James Milner cleared off the line, but other than that, Bournemouth didn't really threaten too much. Liverpool saw it out relatively comfortably and ended up with the 3 points. Now, their slump has included a 1-0 loss at Atletico Madrid, a 3-0 loss at Watford, and a 2-0 loss at Chelsea in a variety of different competitions, the Champions League, Premier League, and FA Cup in that order. And then in between, they had a 3-2 win over West Ham at home. Now, we're going to talk about the slump, of course. They haven't been playing particularly well, especially going forward, and, well, at the back. So, all around, they haven't been playing too well. But I think, of the 3 games there, this is kind of blown out of proportion just a touch. A 1-0 loss at Atletico Madrid, especially off the early corner, not great. Atletico Madrid had a couple chances maybe to go ahead and grab a second. They didn't. A 1-0 loss. Obviously still in the tie. The second leg coming on Wednesday. And then the one that kind of woke everybody up to something might be wrong would be the 3-0 loss at Watford. Nobody played well that day. Alisson didn't play well. Van Dijk didn't play well. None of the front 3 played well. None of the midfield played well. None of the defense played well. Nobody played well. It seemed that nobody could place a pass. Defending was poor, and Watford bullied them really to a 3-0 win. And then after that, a 2-0 loss at Chelsea in the FA Cup. They were much more competitive in that game than they had been in the first 2 losses, I think. Atletico Madrid, we were competitive, but didn't really create too much of anything. We were creating at Chelsea at least. And then a howler by Adrian. Ross Barkley found a second, and that game kind of went away. So, I mean, it is what it is. 2 of those, to me, aren't necessarily surprising or, cause for concern. I think the Watford game was an issue. The Atletico Madrid game, not necessarily. We didn't create a ton, but, it wasn't as bad as it's made out to be. The Watford game was an issue, of course. And then Chelsea with a, I say rotated. There were 4 or 5 different changes. I think if we played well at Watford and maybe won that game 2-0 or something like that, I don't think the back 3 would have played again that they did. Gomez, Van Dijk, Robertson, I don't think those 3 would have played if we'd played well at Watford. I think he's thrown that cup away. I think he's thrown the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup. I think he was throwing them away. The front 3 were heavily rotated. Mane was the only one to keep his space. The other 2 off. Curtis Jones played in midfield. Neco Williams played at right back. So, I mean, that one to me wasn't necessarily one of those games where I figured going in we'd win. Not because we've been playing bad, but because he likes to kind of throw those away. Use it as a chance to rotate. And as I said, if we'd played well at Watford, I don't think the back 3 would have played. I think he would have fully rotated most of that side. Robertson may have kept his space because Milner was still out, but everyone else I think would have been rotated. But the Watford game, to me, is the issue. And there are a couple of issues currently with Liverpool. I think Atletico Madrid played it perfectly, and since teams have been playing this kind of style where they sit back in their blocks, and then what happens was, I'm going to use it with Bournemouth. I'm going to use the Bournemouth example today because Bournemouth did it really, really well, though they, in the front third or in the final third, didn't really find the last pass very often, and we got back relatively well sometimes. But what they did was 11 men behind the ball, and then Callum Wilson, Stanislas, and Fraser up front would drop into the block, and then when the Liverpool players got past them necessarily, and it got toward the final third, those three would split up and move forward a little bit. So it would be Stanislas on the left, Callum Wilson in the middle, and Fraser on the right, where they would open up, spread, and it'd almost be like a 3-on-2, or Fabinho if he were a little bit deeper, 3-on-3. They would move into the spaces that we would not occupy anymore because the fullbacks are always coming forward, and then they would break and break in numbers. Atletico Madrid did it really well. Atletico Madrid are so used to playing how they play that they get forward in huge numbers, and they get wide and everything like that, and that's something they do. But as you know, it's happened a little bit more, and it's happened a lot lately where teams have been playing like that. It happened today with Bournemouth. It happened a lot with Watford, as Ismaila Sarr stayed forward almost the entire game. Even when Liverpool were holding on to it, Robertson would get by him and things. He was just up on the halfway line, and he punished Liverpool a couple times because of just the way Liverpool play. I think that's an issue for Klopp to deal with. I think if we don't get past Atletico Madrid on Wednesday, I think that's a thing he'll work on more toward the end of the year. I think he'll just want to win the title. I think everybody at Liverpool just wants to win the title and move forward. I think that's kind of what the aim is at the moment. Of course, they're going to play Atletico Madrid at home and try and win. This is a big tournament. You don't want to drop out of that. But I think in the back of a lot of people's minds, it's, win the league and then we can go again after the summer. We would have won the league, the Club World Cup, and the Super Cup. I think that's a relatively successful season. But this slump is attributed to a couple of things. As we were talking about tactically, we haven't changed, and teams have caught up, and that's what happens, and you have to change and adapt. Number two, Henderson's absence. He went off late in that Atletico Madrid game. You lose the Atletico Madrid game and you win the others, and this isn't really a conversation, of course. But we've lost the Atletico Madrid game. Henderson's been gone now, and you can see what he does in the midfield. He's always biting at everyone's heels, making sure they're up, making sure they're aware, making sure they're not making silly mistakes, making sure they're tracking back, making sure the work rate is up and ready. He's like the manager on the pitch, and he's a huge, huge miss for this Liverpool team. And they can't wait for him to get back. There was talk that he might be back for Atletico Madrid if he pushed. I don't think so. Probably more toward Everton or the game after that is probably more realistic. Trying to force him back because they miss him that much. He's a huge, huge, huge miss. And you can see it in the midfield. Sometimes, they lose the ball and is a little bit lethargic kind of thing. Henderson, when you see him play, he's not allowing things like that. He's waking everybody up. He's, as I said, at their heels, making sure the work rate is always up. He's always running. He's always, moving the ball along. He's become a huge miss in that midfield. And a couple of things have, as we were saying, attributed to this slump, and that is one of them. Now, one thing I am also think has attributed to this slump is the lack of a creative midfielder. Every team that Liverpool play now sit back 10 or 11 men behind the ball almost solely, and then break with pace. That's how teams play now. The problem with Liverpool is that they don't have this David Silva type of player who's going to rip defenses apart with their passing. We just don't have it. Most of our goals come from the wide areas, the fullbacks, or in open space when we break. The front three are really utilized when we're, kind of breaking and playing in open space. When we have to sit down or sit forward and break teams apart, it comes from the wide areas, the fullbacks, and not necessarily through the middle. That's one difference between this Liverpool team this year and maybe City of last year. City of last year would get these teams that sit back in blocks and rip them apart. And it's the David Silvas of the world, the Bernardo Silvas of the world, who can find these passes in the center of the pitch sitting in front of a block. They get into those gaps and they turn and they see these passes that break open the defense. A David Silva type of... I'm going to keep using David Silva because he's the best. He was the best at it last year before. He's just the best at it, I think. And when we have the players up front, Mane, Firmino, Salah, who can, one, have the pace, and two, have the movement. Firmino has really good movement. Mane has really good movement. Salah has raw pace. There are players up front there that can get in behind defenses or work around in the gaps. The issue being we don't really have the creative mind to always find or open up these defenses. I think that's an issue that should be addressed in the summer. Whether it is or isn't, you never know. Liverpool get linked with huge players all the time, but Liverpool aren't really necessarily like that when they spend money. So we'll see how they spend money come the summertime. I think, though, that in particular is a very, very important issue that needs to be addressed. Lallana will be leaving. Lallana can come in and kind of, when you see Lallana play, he's kind of the midfield plays a little bit different. The other two sit back and they let Lallana kind of move around, and his turns kind of open up defenses. He's pretty good at that, but he doesn't have the incredible kind of vision that, say, David Silva or Bernardo Silva has. So I think somebody who can come in and do that will be needed. Lallana will be leaving for free at the end of the year, so I think a replacement there who has that ability would be ideal. As we said, I don't know. Liverpool are always, they don't go out and spend huge gobs of money outside of the two at the back. And what I mean by huge gobs of money, not spending huge gobs of money, is the reports I read tend to be they like a player, but they don't want to spend a huge chunk of money on a player who won't necessarily play. It happened with Pulisic. It'll happen, or there are rumors it happens with someone like Kai Havertz, where they don't want to play 70, 80 million for a player who's not going to play every game. So we'll see what they do in that moment. I don't mean they don't spend huge amounts of money. We paid 140 million for the two at the back, but we'll see how they spend their money. They seem to be holding off on spending a huge chunk of money on someone who's not going to walk right into the first team. So we'll see about that. Liverpool's next couple of games, they're winnable. There are some winnable games in there. We got Atletico Madrid, of course, at the weekend. Then away to Everton will be tough. Or Everton's on Monday. Liverpool play midweek at against Atletico Madrid, and then Palace, City, Villa, Brighton, Burnley. I firmly believe they just want to get these wins out of the way, win the title, or, well, you want to say get them out of the way. They want to win the title, of course. I think there are a lot of nerves here. It's a huge amount of pressure here. Not winning it for 30 years. You saw it last time. Last year we got to a point, 7 ahead, and then we kind of drained a little bit. And then we were fighting behind City the rest of the way. There was a couple years ago when we had an opportunity, the Gerrard slip. So there have been opportunities. It's been a long, long time. The pressure is huge to go ahead and do this. I think that if they can do it, it'll be a huge weight off their shoulders. But I think that's what they're aiming for. They're going to go ahead and give it their all against Atletico Madrid, of course, but I think that's what they're aiming for. They just want the league done, and then they can go into the new year with that kind of that kind of posture and ability and weight off their shoulders just a little bit, so they can, start mounting for full kind of across all competitions. I'm not so sure if Jurgen Klopp will ever be that manager that tries at all competitions. He always seems to throw the Carabao Cup kind of to the side. We'll see if they're going to buy some players or things like that. But I think they're really aiming for just the league. I think they'd like to get the league on, get it done, and kind of cruise the rest of the season and kind of see where they're at, see where they're about, see if they have to change tactics a little bit, check on the summer, see what they're going to do player-wise. I think that is the goal. And that comes with this question of, is the Premier League enough? A couple of weeks ago, we were still in 3 tournaments, of course. I personally thought that the FA Cup would be thrown to the side. He sort of threw it to the side. There were still obviously a lot of first-teamers in the team, but I think he sort of threw that to the side. I think he just wanted to see some improvement out of the defense. But the Champions League we're still in it, of course, until Wednesday. And then the Premier League. But they've won, say they win the Premier League. They've won the Premier League, the Super Cup, and the Club World Cup. I think that's a successful year. You get toward, with some of these teams that are so dominant, you get toward these times where they're still in all the competitions and all the talk is treble, big double, things like that. And then they kind of only win one thing, and you're like, what could have been, what happened? I don't really like those questions necessarily, but I think every Liverpool fan at the beginning of the year would have thrown every competition away to win the Premier League. I firmly believe that most, if not all, there are always fans who are like, no, we got to win everything. They get angry when you don't win everything, but I think most fans would have taken the Premier League this year and really thrown the others to the side just for the Premier League. The Premier League for Liverpool at the moment is so huge. Obviously, winning the Premier League is huge for everybody, but for a team who haven't won it in 30 years and for a team who've, have always had that high expectation and things like that, have come close so many times, it's really big for Liverpool this time around, and I think that is what they're going to aim for. I think they're going to get it in the end. I think that'll be the only one they get. I'm not so sure about the Champions League. There's some really good teams at the moment. If we were playing, some of these teams that are ripping teams apart going forward, it'd be difficult. We're still in the Atletico Madrid tie. We'll see after that. Maybe form picks up. If we manage to get by Atletico Madrid and form picks up, we'll see. But, for the moment, it's not so great, of course. You can call it a slump, but I think it's just a little bit exaggerated. But, guys, let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you got to the end of the video, let me know. It is 18 and a half minutes or so it's quite a long time to listen to me speak. But, yeah, guys, let me know what you think, and I hope you've enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more, and peace.